Welcome to the Camp Owners Podcast, a space for camp owners to talk about the unique aspects of camp ownership and get inspired by each other. We're going to sit down with camp industry experts, leaders, and fellow camp owners to hear how the camp dream transpired for them, learn from each other, and discuss some of the biggest issues in the private camp industry. Hello, everyone. I'm Kelly Schuna, Executive Director and co-owner of Hidden Pines Ranch Day Camp, located in Stillwater, Minnesota.
Hi, everyone. My name's Howie Grossinger. I'm the co-owner of Camp Robin Hood, a day camp in the suburbs of Toronto, and a co-owner of Camp Walden, an overnight camp about 3 hours north in the beautiful lake region of Ontario. If you are looking to find and subscribe to the Camp Owners Podcast, you can either find us online at gocamp.pro/ownerspod or by searching for us in your favorite podcast app. Finally, if you're listening to this and think it would be useful to other camp owners in your circle, please feel free to send them a note and get them to listen. Hi, Kelly. Nice to see you. Happy New Year. It is really exciting to be back, have the show rolling again in 2023. And before we get to our guest, and we're very excited to have some really high quality conversation, we've got to give thanks to our sponsors. And we've got two amazing ones. The first one is Camptivities. Our friends at Camptivities have an amazing resource for all of you. Sometimes you're the only people who know anything about scheduling at your camp. You already have a lot on your plate. There must be a better way. So you do what we all do. You do a Google search. And what do you come up with? You find something under Camp Activity Scheduler, and you come across Camptivities, an activity schedule for camps, and most importantly, by camp people. As you click the link, you're already thinking, hey, this would never work for me, but you begin to explore. They've got group scheduling, camper scheduling, batch scheduling. I know as a very proud Camptivities user, we were blown away by the possibilities of turning our camp into a Camptivities program using their scheduling system. If you're thinking about organizational continuity and to stop relying on just one person to make all your summer schedules, I know they'd love to show you the next big thing in camp. So reach out to Camptivities at camptivities.com and set up a time to chat. Very simply put, let Camptivities get you away from your desk and back into camp. And thanks again to Camptivities. Kelly, our guest really needs no introduction. So many in our industry know Andy Pritikin, the co-host of the Day Camp Pod. And on the Go Camp Pro Network, we're doing some crossover stuff. We've done some in the past, and we're glad that Andy's returning the favor and jumping into having a conversation with us, Kelly. How are you doing?
I am good. I have a cold, so I'm extra gruff sounding today. So that's just going to add to the voice quality of the show. So I'm good though. I am ready for 2023. My registration opens Monday. So I'm feeling like I'm at the top of the roller coaster, about to just into summer, but I'm great. It's great to see you. I'm super happy to have Andy on. It's going to be like a 2023 crystal ball vibe check. What are we seeing as we go into a new camp season? So I'm excited. This is awesome.
Yeah, so am I. Andy, welcome back to the show. Welcome. Glad you're joining us.
Welcome
Happy New Year
to the show.
Right.
The show. I've been listening
like
to this thing, I feel like for a decade, and I'm just like, oh man.
Well,
one of my favorite podcasts, guys.
You've done some wonderful things with your team, and we're glad to provide some good content. Glad you're part of this. How's your year so far, my friend?
Oh, my year so far? My camp off season or my year 2023? 2023 hasn't gone well as I burst a pipe in my office and it got completely destroyed. But the off season enrollment of this coming summer is going spectacularly well. And as we focus on the staffing part, which was, the challenge for us all.
For sure.
So it's another year. So that's what we're seeing just on that vibe check of camper enrollment is how you've said that too, is the vibe check is that camper enrollment, just like 2022 is strong. It's full. It's on a good trajectory.
Well, simply put, I wish for our friends, including you, Kelly, a very dear friend, that all the good feelings and good things that we've found over starting registration in the fall happens for you guys, because those of us who open registration early, I think across the board, day and overnight camp are really experiencing really encouraging numbers. But before we get into some of our topics, Andy, for those of us on the who are listening who don't know you, can you give us a quick snapshot of your camp, a little bit about your history in the industry? Many people know you, but for those who don't, I would love for you to just share very quickly sort of your journey in the industry.
Yeah, very quickly, could take an hour, but here we go. I'm going to go really quickly. Okay. So I went to town rec program growing up. That was my camp. And then one day my dad came home when I was in middle school and he was like, "You and your brothers are going to sleepaway camp for 8 weeks." And I was like, "No, why do you do it?" Like they were sending me to jail. And it was two of the greatest summers of my life. And coincidentally, the guy that was the owner director of that camp, his name was Joe Kruger, who was one of the first entrepreneurs of camping, multi-camp owner and all that kind of stuff. I had no idea. To me, he was the old guy that got me in trouble all the time. Fast forward to I was in a rock band. I was trying to make it as a rock and roll star. I had dreadlocks and earrings and a goatee. I was on Star Search back in the day. And I got my master's in education because I figured that would be a good day job while I was trying to be a rock star at night. And my dad was like, "Oh, hey, remember I had that guy, Joe Kruger, as a client? Well, I got this, his guy is Ben Applebaum, who's another one of these like unbelievably legendary entrepreneurs. And he's like, you need to meet him. He takes young teachers and turns them into camp rock stars." So I went to Ben Applebaum and he lured me into the world of camping so I retired from teaching after 5 years and became a camp professional and started working out at North Shore Day Camp out on Long Island with Ben and his crew. Ben, unfortunately, it passed away early in life, you could say, like a little bit older than me right now. And they ended up selling that place to Jay Jacobs. So I ended up working with him and his team for a while of great camp operators, and then started out on my own in 2002. Started Liberty Lake Day Camp. So this is our 22nd year. And about 10, 11 years later, we started Everwood Day Camp with Scott Brody and Steve Baskin up outside of Boston. And then last year, about a year ago, became a partner at Southwoods Sleepaway Camp, Camp Southwoods up near Lake George. So I like you, Howie, and now got my foot in the resident camp door.
Absolutely. And as you're telling your story, it's kind of dawned on me, Andy, that we've known each other for close to 25 years now. And we met, I know we met at the Tri-State Camp Conference for the first time and shared a lot of ideas.
Well, I remember vividly the first time I saw you talk before I actually even met you. It was when you and Saul were up there talking about the day camp, how to run a good transportation program, the programming on the bus, which we still do to this day. And I once again, I want to thank you publicly, all right, in this forum for bringing enjoyment on the bus to the States, because prior to that, it was boring. And the Canadians brought us camp fun on the bus. So thank you.
That's very kind. With all of our sorries and our apologies, I'm glad we could bring a lot of fun to our American friends for sure. So Kelly, we've given some of these topics some thoughts. What are you thinking? What should we start with Andy?
Well, as Andy referenced, and I heard this in the beginning of my camp career, is that you either have phenomenal camper retention or camper enrollment, and then it's harder to get staff, or it's an easier time getting staff and harder to get campers. I don't know if that's true, but that was something that was said to me early on. And so we referenced camper enrollment. Awesome. Very fortunate. Hope that, like you said, Howie, many people are in that situation. I think we should talk about trends we're seeing in staffing and recruitment. And so I had on, like, in my crystal ball, looking at 2023, or not crystal ball, like more of a vibe check of what I'm feeling, was talking about how recruitment is going and strategies that are working, aren't working, what people are trying, because every single camp professional owner director right now is in the same boat together, the same lifeboat together of recruitment. So I think whatever we can share that could be beneficial to others is what camp's all about.
Isn't it awesome, by the way, that we're sitting here going, you know what? We could talk about everything except getting campers. Isn't that a pretty funky place to be?
It
right?
is it's a great place to be.
That is a funky place to be in our history of
Absolutely.
doing this. All right. So let me just say
Yeah,
that
please.
in regard to this, like this is becoming a science, right? Like it's nice that we're being able to focus it. We put all our attention to it, and we're hiring experts to help us with this and looking at other industries and stuff. But really, to me, the people we need to be using as the experts are our young people. Because, Howie, Kelly, like, I don't know exactly how old you guys are, but we're about the same age. And, we're not the experts in this. It's completely different. These young people that we're trying to get are wired completely. And when I say that, I even mean the young teachers too. Okay. Millennials, et cetera. Like, it's just different. And we cannot sit here and guess about how to get to these folks. We need to utilize them. And because I think our teachers, just starting with them, like it used to be, you just had a flow of teachers come to you. And I feel that the last couple of summers have been so hard through COVID, right? Like they're burnt out, right?
Absolutely.
And when I talk to teachers now, it's like, 6 weeks maybe, but like, I got to have some time for myself, because at my camp, it was the normal thing was like the Monday after school started, they started with me. And then the Monday after camp ended, they went back to school, and these teachers was like, not doing it anymore. And this is part of what the COVID silver linings in a way for humanity is that we're like, no, we gotta be good ourselves. We can't just be throwing at ourselves at everything. We have to take time for ourselves. So to me, that's been a challenge, is finding those teachers. And, so we have the teachers who have kids that are coming because their kids come to camp. So that's like the hook there, as we know. And then to me, it's the young teachers that are just starting out and don't have kids and have the time and don't have to, as a day camp operator, don't have to go home and make dinner and all those kind of things that parents have to do. So I just think that the teacher part has become challenging, which used to be a no-brainer.
Absolutely. And I remember pre-pandemic, so many of what I would call the mid to late 20-year-old leaders who grew up in my program, camper CIT throughout university, envisioned that this would be a big part of their life. And then we got hit with a pandemic and online learning, and they started their careers, and the demands of synchronous and asynchronous learning and all the stuff that they had to deal with has resulted in they haven't lost their love for camp. They just have really reevaluated, the ways in which they can be kind to themselves as much as they've been kind to others. And they're being, there's a selfishness. They have to start looking after themselves too. And they're, if you're anything like me, Andy, and my connection to especially my management team, like these are some of the hardest conversations that they're having with us, because to actually say to Andy or Howie or Kelly, you know what, I can't give you 8 weeks. I got 4 in me. This is what I have to do. And I agree. I think we're all navigating that, which speaks to us as an industry continuing a theme that I think has existed on being flexible, being able to make things work. If you got good people, and it's maybe not enough to say, take a year off and come back to me because so much can change. You got to keep it in their blood to some extent.
Yeah. I was joking around with my friend Sam Bork last summer when we were commiserating, and I said, I'm getting calls from people, and they're like, yeah, I can work Tuesdays and Thursdays till noon. And Sam's like, you had me at work.
Right.
That's good. That is good. Yeah. And I think a lot of those teachers are in leadership at positions, at least at our camp, but it is that the school's year has been hard. So I need a little decompression time. And how does that fit into camp? But, it's still, I'm even seeing it again with just counselor staff. I have this week mission trip. I have going to Europe or Hawaii with my parents. And I'm like, okay, I need the counselors that need to work. They need the paycheck. They need the 9 weeks, and we're getting some of them, but for sure, flexibility with a capital F, backbend on our part is, I think, becoming the expectation, not the exception.
Agreed. And I also think that for our friends in the overnight camp world, when so many overnight camps historically have relied on teachers and their families coming up to camp, I think that, while I think it's safe to say that maybe our leadership teams are getting younger than ever. We're starting them younger than we ever did at overnight camp. That is very true. Those college age students who are away from home for 9 months and thinking, I'm going to go to my overnight camp for another 8 weeks. I think that those are some real challenges in the overnight camp world too, about committing to being away from home. Crazy. After everything they've been through.
And you're seeing more and more overnight camps that are shortening their seasons because of that, right?
Yeah.
They're going to 6 weeks.
Agreed.
5 weeks,
yeah. And I also, for the first time, I want to tell you folks, it's even with the young people, the high school age kids that work at Robin Hood, I'm having to emphasize in our new staff information sessions, which I hold 3-4 times a week, that I have to emphasize that it's Monday through Friday work, right? It was always assumed I'm getting a summer job, I'm going to work Monday to Friday during the day, but I have to actually emphasize, because of the increase in volume, of saying, can I only work Tuesdays and Thursdays? And that's really changed too. I don't know if you're finding that, Andy. I'm finding to emphasize things that I never
Howie,
had to.
If Amazon is willing to offer you to drive your car to deliver packages, make your own hours, $17 an hour. Okay. I mean, that's our competition. That's what they're comparing it to. Most people, older people, they're looking at jobs and they're looking specifically at stay-at-home jobs. It's a different world out there. But I want to touch on something that Kelly said earlier about the parents, taking their kids on trips and things like that too. This is Andy's little bitch thing about parents right now. I believe that the major part of the work ethic issue that we have with our high school and college students not working at camp. Why do we have less applications for them? Okay. Part of the reason is because when we were young and we said we needed money, our parents said, great, go get a job. Right. Mm-hmm. That is just not the case now. And I had this conversation with people my generation who grew up working class, who had jobs at age 14, part-time jobs during the school year, and then full-time jobs in the summer. And they're like, well, but my son, he plays 2 sports, and my daughter, she's a straight A student, and she's a gymnast, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what are you going to do when they graduate college and they get their first real job? Like, you think they're going to have work ethic built into them? And I get this, he's just not excited about getting a job. And I'm just like, who's in charge here? Yeah. Are the lunatics running the asylum? Get your kids to work. Workforce development and teaching them professionalism and all these skills. It's so damn important. And meanwhile, we have all these friends that are in the workplace, in a normal corporate workplace, not our little camps, which are a little bit different. And they're like, I work with these 20-year-olds. I hate them. I want to strangle them. They have no work ethic. They can't communicate with me. There's a major issue going on right now. Valedictorians are entering the workforce without the ability to collaborate with they play well in the sandbox. Mm-hmm. Right. So I don't understand. We need to educate parents. This needs to go on. Okay, we just took 3 years off mentally because of COVID. We got to get everybody back, and getting these old school things. And I do feel like it's a pendulum and it sort of got pinned and it just needs to come back to normal.
Yeah. Well, that's what Dr. G's been talking about, for the past year, right? Of how do we get those parents involved? And while you were talking, Andy, I had a little bing, oh my gosh, we've been doing obviously so much TikTok recruiting and, sharing from our staff and things like that. But I also am maybe we need to do some kind of post of hey, parents, are you looking to get some of these skills for your kids? Because that is so true. It is, the parents are the key to help with that push. You need to get a job, and this one would be fantastic, right? You got to get one, but I've heard about this, and people talk about how great it is, but that's what G's been saying is parents. And
to that end, I took Dr. G's advice, and just like Andy, I've got, our daughter Jordana, who's on board, who's that, the Howie whisperer when it comes to, please don't talk to teenagers like that anymore. I'll tell you how to do it. But aside from that, we created a dedicated website page to thank parents for supporting their kids coming to work. And I don't have any data to share with anybody about how many of my staff, when we say, could you pass this on to your parents? Because I don't have access to staff parents unless someone has a good idea of how I can get that, but I don't want that necessarily. But we did make an effort to talk about the things that I know we all know in the industry are the benefits of working at camp, and putting it into a bite-sized education for parents to thank them for supporting their kids for doing this kind of work. Because I think at the end of the day, and it's a function of the pandemic, it's a function of parents, the mindset of parents about what real work is that will help them get where they want to be. And we know that, this generation is probably going to have, over the course of their lifetime, 7 different jobs with 8 different firms and
7 different careers, 7 different careers, Howie, not jobs.
Entirely, exactly. And so I think they're letting their kids off the hook way too soon. And these are parents, in large part, my experience, who themselves had camp experiences and lived this experience.
Yeah,
and
had
whether
paper routes. Yeah,
either had paper routes or actually worked at camp, and often attribute who they are and what they became to this experience. Yet they're not.
As they're telling me it, they're like, you could see they're just like, wow, and what am I doing with my kids? Kind of thing. They haven't connected the dots in their head. It's crazy. And you brought up the thing about Jordana, right? Like, you're so lucky you have Jordana. Like, she's such a resource. And with me, Justin, who's going to be working at Everwood, and what he tells me is that, here's my son, who is this high aspiring kid. Like, he's just worked the last 7 months as a corporate executive for Lululemon in Los Angeles. Okay, this kid is a killer. Okay, he is on TikTok 1.5 to 2 hours a day. Okay, you know what else he's on? Nothing. Okay, they're killing their Instagrams. Forget about Facebook. They're never even on Facebook, right? So here's this demographic. Here's this slice of people. It's 2/3 of my camp, high school and college kids, right? And how do we even get to them? Through this ridiculous medium of 7-second insanity. Okay, it's like social media crack, right? That, by the way, if it's too silly, forget it. You're done, right? It has to be like real, real goofy and real. So it's nuts. But that's like the playground that they're in, and that's it. So so you were talking about, Kelly, the parents. We got to hit the parents. Yeah. We got to hit the parent. We got to hit the connectors, okay? Because all of the traditional, and when I say traditional marketing, okay, I'm talking about traditional from 3 years ago, okay? So there's print ads, there's billboards, and there's hanging flyers, right? But then there's Facebook and Instagram. That and mass mailers or whatever. That's the traditional. We are marketing at Liberty Lake to connectors. We're marketing to parents. We're marketing to teachers, coaches, youth leaders. Anybody that deals with these people, because we can't get to them. Yeah, we have a TikTok too, anything. Yeah, I mean, literally, I put out a freaking TikTok and in one day there's 1,500 views, right? So people are watching these things. I don't think it's getting me staff per se, but I want parents and influencers whispering into these young people's ears, hey, look, this would be a great thing for you to spend your summer at. This is a great way to learn these skills and stuff that we tout all the time, right? And have fun. And that's the thing. Like, if Justin was on this Zoom right now, he'd be like, you haven't even mentioned fun. It's literally the only thing you guys have that's better than everybody else's job, is that your job's actually fun.
We sound like old people right now, right? Can we just acknowledge
totally
that?
do.
We sound like old people in tracksuits at the local diner with lips. I have lipstick on my teeth right now, and you two have food in your teeth. And
I'm sending my suit back. It's cold.
What's the name? What's the name of the 2 guys who sit in the balcony in the Muppet Show?
Those guys.
You're those 2. Yep, you're those 2. Basically.
We look pretty good for ourselves, Callie. I don't
know.
I think you look great. Yeah. And you know what, Andy, the fact that you aged me with the 2 of you, I'm going to take that as a compliment, that how wise and experienced I am. So that definitely was a compliment, and I'm just going to roll with that. Anyway, so talking about marketing the connectors, something that I wanted to share that we have done for the first time, with many people have probably done for a long time. But I took the advice of a session from the ACA Staffing Summit about signing bonuses for my returning staff and new staff. And that has been the single most incredible thing investment that I have done this year. So we did $150, which that was not a decision maker for anybody. But what it did is the people that were planning to come back, it just motivated them to get in by January 1. So it like tiers down from January 1. But we have, and again, our staff is a total of 50 counselors. We have 26 returners committed already.
Yeah, great.
So, and that for me, the investment in those returners and new staff who are motivated I've seen a trickle, because like you said, Andy, those connectors are more likely to share a post or share a TikTok because they're coming back, or they're talking to their family members at the holidays, and their family members already know they're coming back. So they can say, well, oh, so-and-so is working at Hidden Pines again this summer. Or I don't know, I'm just hoping that I continue to see this positive earlier trickle in my hiring recruitment season, because so many people said yes, or not said, or committed quicker because they got that money. So for me, the money is talking. It's talking painfully in my payroll increases with inflation, but it's also talking in motivation for staff.
Yeah. And I think that, and Andy, I know, has explored this on his podcast about the other incentives that we can provide staff to keep them not only showing up every day, which is a different issue altogether, particularly for us in the day camp world, but also just referrals and other things that we're trying to incentivize staff to do once they're hired to get more people on board. I also think for the first time in a long time, we have been way more intentional in reaching out to our current parent population about, who's your favorite babysitter? What are they doing for the summer? And just really reaching out and doing a little more direct marketing for staff recruitment to our current parents who are signed up. And as far as the returning, parents too, it never hurts. And I see this because I follow so many camps on Instagram. Camps are getting very, very skillful at announcing returning staff. Johnny gets to see that Jamie's coming back and they were their counselor last year. I think that goes a long way in parent confidence too, that you have retention. And I think we should, all of us should continue to promote that, because that just speaks to, the parents aren't dummies. If you start, and I think about this a lot, if I start, I don't want to light the house on fire that I'm short staff, and I don't want families to think, oh my God, Howie and Sarah are reaching out every other week about helping us find them staff. I don't want them to get nervous, but you got to find some palatable way of just sending out those messages. And I think we're all doing that in our own way. And I've seen that an uptick in that approach to staff recruitment and marketing. Andy, are you seeing similar things?
Absolutely. You gotta every stone unturned. That's just what you got to do. And I think that camps are historically bad at utilizing their current families and their alumni base, because they're your true believers. Hit them up. I'll tell you, Howie, we know what we did in September. We reached out to staff that hadn't worked for us in 2 years and said, hey, how's it going? And we got like 5 staff out of it. Now, Kelly, we have 300 staff, not 60, but it's Titanic chair, right? Whatever. But still, like, utilize your database, and don't be shy. It's 2000 and whatever now. Like, people are everywhere you go. There's a lawn sign that says, $16 an hour or whatever. Like, it's just the thing. I just want to touch on a couple of things that were mentioned earlier. Howie said, like, I don't know if I want to get the information of my staff's parents. In my staff application now, I have a place that says parents' email address, so we could send them important information, so that I actually can send it out. And that was from Dr. G. Kind of, they have a great episode with Dr. G. You should listen to it, everybody. Okay, where she talks about this kind of thing. And another thing I want to talk about, going back to your Jordana thing, having a young person around. You need young people to tell you what you're doing wrong, okay? Because we're not the guys in the Muppets, okay? But we're close. There's no doubt about it. And just because things have worked for the last 20 years doesn't mean they're going to work for the next 20 years, right? And for instance, my son's Justin's giving a session at Tri-State. If you're there, I recommend you go. And one of the things, a little sneak preview, okay, is that he looks at how we're doing staffing. And the first thing he sees is that you go to my staff website and you click on, click here to fill out an application, and it takes you to CampMinder. Now, I'm a big CampMinder guy, okay? So I take this a little personally because they're my friends. But he's like, this application, first of all, it's not you can't do it on the phone, and it's ridiculous. And second of all, it's like 25 minutes long to fill out. He's like, if you can't do an application on your phone in less than 10 minutes, you're already cooked. You're already out. Like you're expecting, like, do you understand how young people think? And I'm sure that people are listening to this right now going, holy crap. Like, you know.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt about that. And our friend Eric Wittenberg, who I work with, often says to me,
my friend,
often says to me, like, the least amount of calories people can burn on your website or going through a form, like, and actually that's been kind of our gospel. And again, we've been trying to be mindful about all those things. We're at the point too, that with some of the, even as part of staff recruitment, we're sending text message reminders and email reminders that they have an interview in an hour, or they have an interview in 24 hours, because they're so attached to their phone. That's the only way. Notifications remind staff. And again, another touch to make sure that if they're in your, if they're in your funnel, like, it just takes forgetting because they didn't check their phone. So reminders. And I hear from young people's like they want the reminders. They're not offended by it. They just, it's good. I got lots going on. It's the way
I get 3 reminders because I got to take my dog to the grooming. I got 3 reminders.
Yeah,
it's just the way business is done now.
Yeah, I think that's good advice from Andy and Howie and Eric Wittenberg, is parsing down that application. We took out references this time. We took out any certificate. Like, we used to ask about your certifications, put in your references. I'm like, nope, we will ask for references after our initial screening or when we want to hire you. So we took that out. We also, like you mentioned, Howie, on our application, we ask, how do you like to be reached? Text, call, email. So then they could specifically say,
I don't even know if that's a necessary question at this point, Kelly. It's text. Right. that's the answer.
Hey, right? I heard at Tri-State, some kids of Gen Z like to be called.
Oh, come on.
Andy.
Yes, we did.
Freaks.
So yeah, I think that's a great advice for people, is parse that puppy down, even if you've already have your application, and make sure they can do it on their phone. That is huge.
Everything's got to be on the phone. So one of the things that, going back to that, we don't have to worry about campers as much as we did, right? As far as in recruiting, right? Yeah. Is that I looked at everything that I had done normally to recruit campers, and I literally just flipped it on its head to do it for staff. Yeah. Literally billboards, advertisements, like all those kind of things, but different. They got to look different, because that's the thing. If Howie's been advertising in this magazine for campers, okay, for the last 10 years, he can't take that same ad and make it staff, because they're going to think it's a camper ad. It literally has to look different. He has to compute differently, because trust me, I learned the hard way on that kind of thing. And, at my camp, every 3 weeks, we were doing camper recruitment open houses at our facility. Well, now we're going to do staff recruitment open houses, and we're going to do fun things. We'll do a Tough Mudder. We're going to do a Teacher Appreciation Day. We're going to do all kinds of things to get people to come out and bring their friends, and that's what's, so we're just, it's opening up a whole new way of thinking. And then at the same time, we're like, wow, we should have been doing this a long time ago, to broaden our pool.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think what's hit us squarely between the eyes is the need to be more competitive, particularly in the, the day camp space, with salaries. And, for those of us who are in a jurisdiction that requires minimum wage, you have your own set of boundaries and obligations. But for people like myself who are not bound by minimum wage laws for student employment in the summer, there's just no doubt in my mind that that we needed to increase salaries. And my theme this year is staff, not stuff. And we're putting a lot of our budget has to go into staffing. And already, it's been a breath of fresh air. And I promoted that. That was my hook, that if you want to know how much you're getting paid, book time to meet with me, kind of thing. And thankfully, at this time of year that we're recording this, my calendar is quite full. And so far, word on the street is good, but I'd rather be the first day camp in my market to be starting to pay staff more. I really wanted to get ahead of it, just from a strategic point of view.
Yeah, no, it's a good strategy.
So those are some things. So people may want to think about that given their own situation.
Yeah, minimum wage is it's a moot point at this point. It is, whether you have to pay minimum wage or don't have minimum wage. What you have to pay? You have to pay as much as Burger King's paying. You have to pay as much as Panera's paying. You have to pay as much as 7-Eleven is paying. That's your competition.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what minimum wage is. I fought for years in New Jersey. New Jersey was one of the few states in the United States that that actually had minimum. You had to pay minimum wage at a camp, and I fought against it for years. And after a while, we were just like, screw it, this is ridiculous. Like, we got to get good people. And this is the camp owners podcast. It's mostly private camp people probably listening. But man, can you imagine being a not-for-profit camp these days? Oh, yeah. Right? And charging half of what we charge, and trying and having to get good people. Like, geez, I mean, be glad that we can charge, a decent amount so that we can pay a decent amount.
Yeah.
Well, the why by us increased their salaries to last year. And I had to ask them, what are you paying? Because I was like, okay, I got to for sure pay. We, for a long time, we're paying way more than them. And then last year they bumped up to close to what minimum wage is going to be. And I was like, hot dang, how are they doing that? But you're right, Andy, they charge half of what we charge. And they are being able to pay now what we pay. But you're right. Our staff cannot drive by Subway, Pancheros, whatever it is, Target, and see $16 an hour, $15 an hour starting. So I have to pay that. It's like,
and I'm wondering, Kelly, also Andy, and because of your involvement in overnight camp, like me, like are overnight camps still, generally speaking, getting enticing staff for what has traditionally been overnight camp salaries? What's your sense?
No, they're raising their salaries. Absolutely, they're raising their salaries. They can't just say, oh, well, it's room and board for 8 weeks.
Forget that.
That doesn't mean anything anymore. One last thing on staff. I know we want to touch on some other things too, but the staff insanity that we experienced in like 2021, right, with everybody being so delicate and cancel culture and just like all mental health days and all this kind of stuff, right? I'm reading this awesome book. This is not my like little wisdom thing, right? So I just have to recommend this book. It's called The Coddling of the American Mind. And it's unbelievable. It's just such a great like explanation of this whole thing and all. And I do feel like the pendulum again is coming back to normal. People are starting to understand that things went a bit far with that. And I highly recommend it. I just wrote this article. It's going to get published nationally about camping. And I actually integrated their 3 big, fraud ideas into it.
Kelly and I have been a big fan of the book. Thanks for reinforcing it. It was a real eye opener for me when it came out. And I think it will serve not only us as leaders, but I think it's kind of required reading for parents today for sure, because there's a way to put a stop on this, as slow as it might be. But I think that it's an awesome book. I'm so glad you brought it up. Highly, highly recommended from Kelly and myself as well, for sure. So what about the pendulum swing? Do you want to get us going on a little bit of that?
Which pendulum are we talking about now?
Well, just the trend towards the attitude towards camp in general and its need and its and what it provides.
I want to talk about that, and I wanted to integrate something that you texted me earlier today, which was about economics too. Yeah. So I just think it's really logical here, right? Because you have this situation of like, what are parents looking for? And then you have the situation of, holy crap, gas costs so much and staff costs so much, and we can't spend as much anymore either. And I think that we're fortunate that the two, they overlap each other, because, we took advantage of COVID in running our camps downscaled and having people enjoy it. And I'm a firm believer that we do not have to snap back into turning into amusement parks again and keeping up with the Joneses. That is not how people think anymore. That is old school thinking. That is the thinking of the 2 guys in the Muppet Show. Okay. That is not reality. Okay. The parents that I serve, especially the young parents, sorry, I don't really care about the old parents right now. The young parents, they want their kids outside. They want their kids scraping their knee. They want their kids getting wet from the stinking rain, right? They want their kids getting in arguments and they want their kids, they don't want that 20-year-old who's that 28-year-old living at home on Prozac. They don't want that. They want a functional person in society. And they have seen how things have happened over this course of time. They saw how the older generation, the parents that are close to our age, how got overwhelmed with technology and just gave everybody an iPad and screwed them up, right? They are now treating technology like sugar and not giving them Frosted Flakes every meal, right? And I think that this is our opportunity now to be downscale. Old school, baby. That's what they want. They want old school stuff. And we can't afford not to do that. Free play. There's not enough free play in this world. Free play is so important in children's lives. I could do an hour on free play right now. And guess what free play costs? Nothing. Okay, well, that should be integrated into your camps, right? At sleepaway camp, you got rest hour, you got the time like before you go out. Day camp, all right, make it 7th period. You know?
Yeah, totally on board with that. An exercise I know we did. I walked around the site. Well, Jordana, of course, you know, spearheaded this project, but she walked around the project, the site for about an hour with our maintenance guys and pointed to all this material that is sitting in a dump on the backside of the property that we can convert into free play activities. And we don't have to buy anything. And I don't need a purchase order. And I don't have to tell my purchasing person to, you know, use my credit card. Stuff on site that we can make safe and usable. And all those kids want to do is often bang some wood together and have some fun. And I think we should not be afraid to promote that is a beneficial activity for kids today, because I think our parents are more on board than we think about that kind of stuff.
Howie, think about when Jordana was 1 year old, okay, and your parents bought her this really awesome plastic whatever thing from China, right? And they put it out there, and here, isn't this great, right? Her big dollhouse, right? And all she wanted to do was take a wooden spoon and bang it in a pot.
Yep.
That is the epitome of what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And I think kids are showing it that they need it too. I think that was our experience last year. Is we have an outdoor classroom for our K1, but our entering 2nd graders showed us last year that they need free time in their rotation schedule, because it was too much. It was too much going archery, horses, canoeing, tennis. So we are now this year expanding our outdoor classroom just for those 2nd graders, and really for more, because I think we need to do it, and for inflation and economics. But I think kids post-pandemic are also showing us, parents want it, but I'm seeing behavior that kids need it as well.
Absolutely. And I think these conversations are happening all across North America with all of our camps about the value.
You are not alone out there, people. You're not alone. This is common thinking. And I just want to stress, you know, going back to the psyche of these parents, right? This is not like this whole rush to go back to basics, the rush to all of a sudden camp. Hey, you know what, that proposition of going to camp, that's not child abuse. That's actually a great idea. I'm going to send my kid to camp. It's not too expensive. As a matter of fact, right now, my kid won't get out of the room and take their headphones off of playing video games. I'll pay cash. I'll pay double. Okay. That is not because they were locked in their house for a year and a half in the pandemic. It is because they're smart enough to know that their kids lost a year and a half or so of socialization skills. They see it, they know it. These kids are crumbling easier, right? We see it with our younger staff, right? And parents are like in crisis mode of what can I do to help catch up, right? And you see it with grown-ups. Grown-ups are going out to concerts. We're hanging out with our friends more, right? What can you do for your kids?
Exactly.
My Renaissance fair, Howie, we sold out 4 days, couldn't park another car like never before seen, because people are like, we got to get outside, we got to be with people, we got to catch back up all that time we lost.
Well, I also think that, you know, and this is part of what we kind of chatted about beforehand was, you know, parents will continue to make investments in things like what we do, right? We talk about the recession, the pending recession and all this stuff. Parents are prioritizing what they're going to provide their kids. And I still think we're the best game in town to be able to provide everything, one-stop shopping for everything that can help their kids become better people. And I think parents are recognizing that more than ever. So while some of us may be nervous about what the spring may hold about, you know, are people canceling on me? Are they going to ask for their money back? I think historically, I think we've been able to ride the wave of all those things. Is that your gut too, Andy and Kelly, about, you know, any nervousness about that? I mean, there may be some reductions in things, etc., but this is an experience more than ever, as we've described and how we feel, that, you know, I think we're going to be okay.
Well, I think what I think is very interesting in an experiment in my own house, which I pride myself in hopefully being a parent where my kids have autonomy and they're explorers and they're curious. Like we live at a summer camp, right? So we rogue 70s parent here, like they go out and they play and they explore. But post-pandemic, my 12-year-old, so sixth grader right now, is homesick when we leave, when he goes to sleepovers or when we go out of town, which has never happened. None of my kids are homesick kids. Like they're like, bye. But he has been more homesick. So for me, we've talked about overnight camp and my kids have always been like, but I love being in our camp. I'm like, nope, you got to go. And he hasn't gone. And this summer he's going 9 days. Cause I'm like, you can do this. Number one, you're brave, you're strong. I know you got this, but I'm also like extra motivated to push him to go. Cause I'm like,
pushing him.
You are showing signs that I have not seen in you, which I think is post-COVID. So I even see it in a home where we're not always on technology there, so I just think that that's very interesting to me. So
yeah, I love that
too.
too.
All right, what else do we want to wrap with? We got a couple more minutes with Andy before he's got to go camp owner.
Gotta go play Gaga in elementary school after school.
Gotta go do some wicked
still grinding.
Gaga.
I'm still grinding.
By the way, you guys are Statler and Waldorf. That are the old Muppets.
Oh,
so Statler's got to go kick some young kid ASS in Gaga.
Let's just go to the wisdom piece. I think that we've done a great job.
Before we do, we got to give a little bit of a shout out, don't we?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Our last sponsor for our program, second one to get to, second but not least is importance, is Camp Brain. Camp Brain and your registration software are importante right now with those campers and that awesome enrollment. So it is the time where if you are maybe not totally satisfied with your camp software because you are using it so much right now, it's great to consider Camp Brain. Every interaction with these parents matters, as we've talked about. And that's why Camp Brain has made an elegant, easy to use parent experience. It makes it simple for parents to register multiple kids. You don't have to do one at a time. You register all the kids and it's one checkout, which is chef's kiss for those parents. Allows them to fill out all the forms and paperwork, and just another reason to consider moving or just thanking your Camp Brain people. So if you are looking at them and wanted them as an option, you can go to campbrain.com or call 866-485-8885. And we just want to thank Camp Brain. So we appreciate you supporting us. Now we are moving to our inspiration program portion, where we end each show talking about something that's inspiring us right now. So this can be a book, article, podcast, documentary, leadership quote, anything else that inspires us to be better camp professionals. So we'll each share something. Howie, do you feel like starting us off today?
I would be happy to, Kelly. My inspiration is a book that has come to my attention that I've started to look at, and it's called, well, we're at a time, given the recording and the delivery of this podcast at the beginning of the year, and it's always a classic time for New Year's resolutions. And the book that I came across is a book that some of you may have heard of. It's called How to Begin. It's a book about the idea of worthy pursuits. It's by Michael Stanler. He basically divides worthy pursuits into 3 silos: projects, patterns, and people. Projects being things you want to achieve, patterns being behavior you want to change, and people, things you want to start, or people you want to start interacting more positively with. And I thought that the book, as I've started to read it, really demonstrates, a good platform for how we begin as camp people every year with, goals and things of things that we want to improve on or enhance what we do. I find it very, very interesting, and it starts with the following question: my primary pursuit is X, and it could be a starting point for all of us. So check it out, How to Begin, for those of us who are planning our pre-camp, planning our summers, planning other parts of our operation. Check it out.
All right, awesome. Andy, do you want to go?
My primary pursuit is not having to work so hard. Oh my God. But anyway, I need to write that down, I guess. So similar to Howie's book, very much. A book was recommended to me from our friend Jonathan Gold. It's called Strength to Strength, and it's by Arthur Brooks, who's a very famous author in his own right. This is a book about the second half of your life, about how you transition to being useful as a younger person and doing, let's say, the first 15 years of your business and working hard at all that, and then how you transition to the next part of your life and handing off the reins kind of thing. And basically going from the grinder, and yes, I'm about to go out and run a gaga thing at an after school program at a great public school right now. And so I'm still grinding. I need work. That's why I love this book. Into more of being more of a Yoda kind of wisdom kind of figure, where you're bestowing your experiences and stuff upon people and onto the people that you're working with. And you're not that person that's necessarily driving the situation at every moment. A lot of people who are camp owners who are listening here are the cult of personalities, and they're hardest working, and they've been working 20 hours a day 7 days a week for like as long as they can remember, and all that kind of stuff. And there's only so much you can do until you start losing it, right? And we've all seen people who run camps who have done it for too long. And you're like, wow, that person should have handed it off 10 years ago. And now their camp just lost $3 million in value because they got no campers there and they can't sell it for what they want to, right? That happens a lot because people are prideful and it's their thing. And this book is just a really eye-opening piece of work that explains really well how we can view the second half of our lives.
I like that.
I do.
That's really good. All of us camp professionals will need that at some point. Maybe let's just sell it in the bookstore. My inspiration honestly isn't a book or podcast this time. It is watching my 16-year-old have a job. And I think it's inspiring for all of us in talking about staff and some of our back in my day comments. But there are good staff out there, because watching my son, who was not told to get a job, he just wanted one. Watching him go there on time, comment about like other staff, maybe he's being negative, but he's commenting on other staff, like not going the extra mile or making excuses to not show up. And he doesn't like that, and how it impacts them when they're, supposed to have 4 staff and 3 show up. So it has really been inspiring for me to watch him be a great employee from a distance. Like I kind of want to go spy on him, but I do think it gives me hope about there are kids from this Gen Z generation that are going to be phenomenal workers when we get secret sauce, like now my daughter, she asked if her owner of her business could maybe fill her shift. Now we have some work to do with her. So my kids are not perfect employees, but my 16-year-old is very inspiring to me about our workforce that's coming up. So we can have hope. We can have hope. They're going to be, there's some phenomenal kids there.
It's great to hear you be a proud mama, which is good. But some of the secret sauce is simply this: your kids grew up in a camp environment, and they know, and they sat in like our kids did in pre-camp sessions with Michael Brandwine and Jay Frankel and people up in Canada that are so dear to us. Like it's just that by osmosis, our kids have a vision of what it means to work. So there is something to be very proud of that. But we also know for all the kids who take the chance to work for us and with us, that they're going to end up just like that. I have a lot of faith in this generation. We just have to be reminded as camp operators that we have to meet our staff where they're at. And the days of pining for what used to be cannot enter into your language, because it'll just hold you back. So we're trying very hard. I know I am, as Stadler or whoever I've been named in this podcast from the Muppets, to do that. And I have good reminders on my team, but we're very, very excited. So thanks for that, Kelly. And that's awesome. As we end our podcast, huge shout out to Andy for joining us. This is great. Much overdue appearance on the Camp Owners podcast. Your insight and your wisdom over so many years in so many different areas of the industry is much appreciated. Andy, if people want to get a hold of you, please do a shout out for your podcast. Please tell them how they can get a hold of you. You're on.
Andy at libertylakedaycamp.com, and the Day Camp podcast, check it out, right? And, if you want to check out the website, is actually daycamppodcast.com. But of course, just like the Camp Owners Pod, you could subscribe and listen to some good ones, including our boy Michael Brandwine. We'll be on shortly.
Exactly. And Kelly, how can our friends get a hold of you?
My email is kelly@hiddenpinesranch.com, or my personal Instagram is KJSchuna3.
Amazing. Thank you. And if you want to reach out to me, it's howie@camprobinhood.ca. Yes, I'm Canadian. It's CA. And you can reach me on social at Howie Grossinger. Please don't forget that you can find all of our show notes at gocamp.pro/ownerspod. You can find the resources that we mentioned in this episode and lots of good stuff from our show and others, just like the Day Camp Pod. So check it out. We hope you enjoyed this. Andy, thank you so much. Kelly, amazing to see you.
Love
and
you
chat with
guys. Speaking
you
for the
soon.
listeners, we love you guys.
Okay, and see all of you at a conference in your neighborhood shortly. Lots of conferences. Let's connect and say hello.
Yes.
Take care and see you next time on
Thank
the Camp
you.
Owners Podcast.
Arrivederci.